Welcome to Weekly Pulse. I'm your host, Lorenzo Reyes. I hope everyone got what they wanted for Christmas, and NBA fans certainly unwrapped a treat with the battle for LA. We have our NBA reporters recapping all the biggest storylines from the Christmas Day games. But let's be real, everyone's attention should be on what's going down this Saturday, the college football playoff. And this may be the best semifinals we've had since its inception. Our Paul Meyerberg previews both games and gives his prediction on who wins. And on Sunday, the NFL regular season comes to its conclusion. I give our latest power rankings as well as what's left to be settled in Week 17. Oh, and you probably know this already, but it's the end of the 2010s. Our USA Today sports staff gives their best teams of the decade, and that's sure to be debated. Let's roll. We have to start in Dallas, where it looks like the end of the Jason Garrett era is imminent. Another baffling season full of baffling play calls, baffling clock management, baffling substitutions, baffling pretty much everything. And after what can only be considered a season that is a massive, utter disappointment, you'd have to think that significant changes are coming this offseason in Dallas. Which brings us to the Eagles. I've been down on them for being inconsistent and failing to live up to their potential in a down NFC East this year, but they deserve credit for getting hot at the right time and building a little 3-game winning streak, including what was basically an NFC East title game on Sunday. Carson Wentz is playing much more efficiently, the team is adapting to injuries and adversity, and has young players like Dallas Goedert stepping up when they need plays to be made. For that, the Eagles are no question big risers this week. Now let's do a little rapid fire. The Panthers, fallers. They better hope that Cam Newton comes back healthy because life without him looks pretty bleak. A riser. It's the Chiefs. They're playing their best football of the season, and it's not because of Pat Mahomes or that offense. The defense is why. Another faller, the Steelers. You have to give Mike Tomlin credit for getting that roster to 8 wins. But still, this is another team that badly needs its quarterback back. And finally, let's end on a positive note with the Cardinals. They're not yet consistent, but a nice season from Cliff, from Kyler, and now Kenyon has shown that if they can keep growing, keep developing that talent, the future in the desert may be bright. I know they look like trash Monday night, but this is a Vikings team that simply cannot afford to have another letdown like that. If the Vikings do want to make a run in the postseason, they need to right the ship, and their time to do it really is right now. Minnesota is locked into the number 6 seed, so technically they really don't have a lot to play for. And watch to see whether Mike Zimmer opts to rest some key players or not. But even if he does, I think this Vikings roster is so much more talented than Chicago's, who really has nothing to play for. The Vikings are giving one at home, a line frankly I'm stunned to see. I've got Minnesota winning comfortably 27-17 in my lock of the week. Philly is giving 4.5 points on the road for a short road trip to North Jersey. But this is an Eagles team that needs to play its best football, and they need to do it right now. They've won 3 in a row, Carson Wentz is playing more efficiently than he had in the past, and this is a Giants squad that will almost certainly face upheaval and transition in the coming months. I've got Philly taking it 26-20 in my lock of the week 2.0. Finally, let's look at a team that is locked into the AFC's 5th seed, but is still playing its starters in the season finale regardless. The Bills are at home against a wildly inconsistent Jets team, giving 1.5 points. This is like the odds makers sending you a holiday gift that arrived maybe just a little bit too late. But unwrap this one with glee. I'm going with the Bills, 23-19, and you should too.
I'm Jared Bell, USA Today Sports, and here's what I'm hearing. I caught up with Cowboys owner Jerry Jones for about 10 minutes on Sunday night in the aftermath of the Cowboys' deflating loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, and he told me admittedly it leaves him a lot to consider when I ask him about Jason Garrett and the possibility that he will move on from the embattled coach. Now, Jones was subdued. That's probably the best way to describe his mood. And you know, Jones can get a bit emotional, but he kept his emotions in check after the game and talking to the larger mass of media and then with me privately. But he did tell me, hey, we should have never been in this position. Very disappointed with the loss. And as he put it to me, generally, my radar is on when it comes to thinking about coaches and who's out there on the market. So obviously stay tuned on this. I'm Jared Bell, USA Today Sports, and that's what I'm hearing.
The Clippers just cemented their second regular season win against the Lakers. Kawhi Leonard dominated against LeBron James. But what I'm taking away from this game is very little. The reasons, well, one, This game was played on Christmas Day as opposed to June, so there's a lot of things that can evolve throughout the season. But you also have to look at some of the circumstances. The Lakers could have easily won this game if the call was overturned with Patrick Beverley's trip on LeBron James and if it was ruled in favor of the Lakers' possession. The Lakers also could have won this game had they not struggled from the three-point line and fouled for much of the second half. And those are things that usually that they don't have problems with. Another thing is LeBron James could have easily rectified his poor shooting performance had he not gotten injured with his groin injury early in the first quarter. Now, the Lakers are going to have to keep an eye out on that because LeBron James is 34 years old. He's going to turn 35 on December 30th, and it's the 17th NBA season, but it's something that they'll likely be able to manage short term, and it's something similar to some of the pain that he felt last week when he missed Sunday's game against the Nuggets. So for sure, the Clippers should be feeling good about themselves with how well they played, but I'll take the word from them that they don't really take anything away from this game because it was played in December and not in June.
The NBA's Christmas Day games featured All-Stars and MVP candidates, and here's what we learned from the 5 games. In the first game of the day, Boston defeated Toronto, and if the Celtics are going to get that kind of play from Kemba Walker and Jalen Brown, that certainly makes them a strong contender in the Eastern Conference. In the second game of the day, Philadelphia defeated Milwaukee, and if the Sixers are going to hold Giannis Antetokounmpo to just 18 points, get phenomenal three-point shooting, and Joel Embiid has 31 points and 11 rebounds, they want to turn that into some consistency. If that's the case, that also makes the Sixers a team that could also contend for the Eastern Conference Championship. Golden State beat Houston, and that's a bad loss for the Rockets. The three-point shot wasn't falling, and it just was not enough when you go 16 of 51 from the three-point line. In the best game of the day, the Los Angeles Clippers beat the Los Angeles Lakers for the second time this season. The Clippers had both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on the court, and defense was the name of the game for the Clippers, especially in the fourth quarter when they limited the Lakers. This is a matchup that everyone would love to see in the Western Conference playoffs, particularly the conference finals, with a spot in the NBA finals on the line. And in the final game of the day, the Pelicans just aren't having the kind of season they expected. Zion Williamson has been out all season with an injury, but we do know this much. The Denver Nuggets are starting to play the kind of basketball that people expected them to play all season long, and they believe they can be one of those teams that can compete with the Clippers or the Lakers for the Western Conference Championship.
The Red Bull's kicking it. I'm wired right now. Between Lindsay and I to see who. Hi, I'm PK Subban. Today we're playing Who Knows Who Better between Lindsay and I.
What year was PK drafted? He's played for 10 years. So if it's 2019, he was drafted in 2009. Yes, it's correct, right? I was close.
Lindsay's first Olympics would have been, was it 2008? 2010. Lindsay's first Olympics was in 2002, and she was 17. So I got that one right, yeah.
PK was selected not high in the draft. I know that he was disappointed. 85th? Oh, shoot. I meant 8th.
Lindsay's favorite skier was Peekaboo Street.
Does PK shoot righty or lefty? He shoots righty. Yes! Win! 1 point for me.
How many career victories does Lindsay have? Well, it's 82, right? World Cup victories, yeah.
All the teams PK has played for are the Montreal Canadiens, the Nashville Predators, and now the New Jersey Devils.
How many Olympic medals does Lindsay have? She's got 3 Olympic medals, gold and 2 bronze. First gold medal was at the Vancouver Olympics, and she was crying when she won it like a huge baby.
The most goals PK has ever scored in a season, 25. Damn it. I always err on the side of positive.
Career starts? Oh, wow. It's between 300 and probably 500. Well, that's what I mean. So that's actually a great guess because I'm right in the middle. That's basically a correct answer. So. Are you kidding? I pretty much had everyone right. I mean.
Is this like some sort of trial before we get married? You must know my hockey stats.
Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Clemson. 2 unbeaten teams. We've never seen that in a national semifinal. Here's how these two teams got here. Ohio State is number 2 team in the country. They were number 1 for a lot of it in the college football playoff rankings. They got bumped late. Congratulations, you get to play Clemson in the first round. For Ohio State, a Heisman finalist in Justin Fields, a Heisman finalist in defensive end Chase Young, a guy who may have been a Heisman finalist in another year in running back J.K. Dobbins. Dominance. Dominance all season long. Clemson at number 3, the defending national champions. Disrespect, right? That's what Dabo Swinney says. They were number 1 last year. They destroyed Alabama to win it. They were number 1 to start the year, and they've just gone down to number 3. It happens. Clemson is also complete. They are also dominant. They also have a great quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. Also have an amazing running back in Travis Etienne. The most impressive thing about Clemson, they lost 4 starters on the defensive line last year who were All-America picks. 3 went in the first round of the draft. They're still good. X factor for this one, Ohio State's offensive line, Clemson's defensive line. It'll decide the game. Ohio State's offensive line is really good. They got a star at guard in Wyatt Davis. You can't really stop Ohio State, or shut them down at least, but you can slow them down on the ground, put the pressure on Justin Fields to deliver. I know he's got 40 touchdowns, gets 1 interception. Your best chance to win for Clemson, win on first down, bottle up J.K. Dobbins, make Fields beat you. For LSU, it's been a romp. I mean, 13-0. Really no close games. Even the close games, in Alabama or in Auburn are inflated by the fact that those 2 teams scored touchdowns late. LSU never really was in danger at any point in the regular season. Take the SEC championship against Georgia, 37-10. Just a machine on offense for LSU and a defense that's getting a lot better. Oklahoma squeezed into the field at number 4, and they really barely squeezed in. Going into conference championship weekend, you thought Utah was the team. They just had to beat Oregon. Utah lost. Oklahoma beat Baylor for the 2nd time this season. Oklahoma back in the playoff for the 3rd year in a row, and for the 3rd year in a row with a Heisman finalist at quarterback in Jalen Hurts, though he didn't win it, unlike Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. X factor in this game. Can Oklahoma get a pass rush? It's the issue, and it will decide this game, because the only way to beat LSU is to put Joe Burrow under pressure, set off their timing in their passing game. It's a lot to ask. Georgia couldn't do it. Alabama couldn't do it. Auburn, Florida, you name it, they couldn't do it. Oklahoma's defense is better than it's been, probably not good enough to stop LSU.
A lot of disrespect, a lot of talk about Oklahoma being a 2-touchdown underdog to LSU. One of the bigger point spreads we've really had recently in these playoff games. And if you talk to Oklahoma, one of the things that stands out is just the way their season's gone. They've really had to hang in there. Lincoln Riley said this is maybe the toughest team he's had at Oklahoma. When you think about losing that game midway through the season to Kansas State, week after week, they kind of were in close games. They fell behind 28-3 to Baylor, had to come back to win that game. So this is a team that's actually seen some adversity and has been able to just find ways to claw back and win. And certainly Jalen Hurts, their quarterback, has had a lot to do with that. Their improved defense, Alex Grinch, first-year coordinator, and just the way they've improved. Oklahoma's also a team that's kind of slowed the pace down offensively from previous years, where they run the ball a lot. They don't necessarily hurry up all the time. They bleed the clock, and that's given this particular team a better chance to win. And when you face a team like LSU, the potential to slow the game down, keep Joe Burrow off the field in that high-potential LSU offense, certainly could be a way for Oklahoma to make this game a lot closer than a lot of people think.
Today we had the last media day before the Fiesta Bowl between Clemson and Ohio State. So we got everybody, the entire coaching staff, the entire roster, support. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, scores and scores of people. But I think the person who attracted the most attention was Jeff Scott. We got to talk to him for the first time since he was named head coach at South Florida.
Yeah, and he was very excited about the new gig, but also very excited about returning to his old team and kind of, as he said, finishing.
So Brandon Streeter, the quarterback's coach, moved up to passing game coordinator. So that vacated the recruiting coordinator position, and that went to Todd Bates. And, during the season, a couple of games I missed, I was out on the recruiting trail, like interviewing recruits and their parents. And the name that kept coming up was Todd Bates, like how he connected with the players, how he connected with the parents. And I talked to him about it. He said it's about being genuine, being authentic. And we know we've heard horror stories about recruiting where recruits are told one thing and it ends up being another thing. So they said they want to be transparent, they want to be authentic, and that's helped them. And so he's going to fill that role, kind of coordinated. They do everything collectively, so in a collaborative effort. But he's going to be kind of leading that charge, and I think he's very prepared for that. And he's a great guy for it.
He is, and I think Dabo has heard that similar feedback from recruits and recruits' parents So Todd Bates is not only an obvious choice, but a good one too.
Yeah, and he and Dabo are kindred spirits, and they love acronyms. So he gave me another one today. Is that they always say best is a standard. He said BEST was be elite and stay there, and so that's exactly what Clemson has been doing. And we'll see how that works out Saturday when they take on the Buckeyes.
It's been a revolving door for the #1 team in the country, and once again we have a new top team in the coaches poll. The Gonzaga Bulldogs are currently now out front, and as conference play begins, one has to wonder if the Zags can stay at #1. The Bulldogs have road wins over Oregon, Arizona, and Washington, as well as a home win over an injury-plagued North Carolina team. Their lone loss came in the Bahamas against a hot-shooting Michigan squad. Look, Coach Mark Few has a dynamic and loaded offense once again this year, with nearly 7 players averaging double figures. Right now, Ohio State is the team that's best positioned to leapfrog the Zags, but that requires winning on the road in the Big Ten, which is just about as stacked and competitive as any conference in the country right now. Some surprises in the poll. Number 6, Baylor. This is a team that could really challenge Kansas in the Big 12. And then number 14, San Diego State, a power mid-major team that hasn't lost yet and is really getting some traction here. Kansas, the previous #1, lost to Villanova and now dropped to number 5. Then you've got number 2, Ohio State, number 3, Duke, and number 4, Louisville, rounding out the top 5.
The U.S. women's national team has won 2 World Cups this decade, 2015 and 2019, obviously. They made the finals in 2011. They won the Olympic gold medal in 2012. But to me, the mark of true excellence is that they have been ranked #1 for all but, I think, maybe 3 months of the decade. And the only reason that they weren't ranked that's that long is because FIFA only does rankings every quarter, I think it is. Sometimes they do it weirdly, but it's every quarter. So it probably wouldn't have even lasted that long had FIFA done rankings more often.
Yeah, the Patriots, obviously, for the, top to bottom, multiple Super Bowls, that's the team of the decade. But if you pick 1 year, 1 team, I'm going to go with the Seattle Seahawks and that Legion of Boom. They were such a balanced team. We're talking about Russell Wilson, Marshawn Lynch, and then that fabulous defense with, I'll take the Seahawks in 1 game against anybody when they were at their peak against the world, if you will. When you think about the Seahawks, who won a Super Bowl and almost won another Super Bowl, except they lost to the Patriots, the Seahawks were really the dynasty that could have been.
Yeah, the Golden State Warriors are undisputably the team of the decade, won 3 NBA championships and 5 consecutive finals appearances, and 2 of those finals runs that ended in championships. They had 4 All-Stars: Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. They set an NBA regular season record in the 2015-16 season with 73 wins, surpassing the Chicago Bulls record in 95-96. And I think that, once this is all said and done, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry are going to be going down as the best shooters in NBA history.
When you look at the team of the decade, that 2016-17 Warriors team, it's the first year with Kevin Durant. They were an offensive force, especially with Durant leading the way. They could hit 3-pointers at will. They could dominate teams on the break, in transition, and then in the playoffs, they lost 1 game. They were 16-1. They swept the first, second conference finals, and it was the gentleman's sweep, a 4-1 victory over Cleveland in the finals.
Yeah, it's so hard to pinpoint one team of the decade. I mean, if you just go by regular season wins, division titles, clearly the Los Angeles Dodgers. You go by World Series wins, San Francisco Giants, the only team to win 3. Boston Red Sox won 2 World Series and were a powerhouse. We've seen what Houston Astros have done. But my team of the decade has got to be the San Francisco Giants. Hey, it's all about the rings. Even though they never made the playoffs back-to-back years, and certainly toward the end of the decade, some bad years. But to win 3 times in 5 years, we haven't seen this since the New York Yankees back in their glory days. So I could go, even though San Francisco Giants never won more than 94 games in a year, I'd go San Francisco Giants as my team of the decade.
The most dominant individual season of the decade for me was the 2013 Florida State football team. You're talking about a team that was not really on the radar in the preseason. They had a guy coming in as a redshirt freshman quarterback that not a lot of people knew about by the name of Jameis Winston. And yet from the minute that team took the field early in the season, they were just completely dominant. And they just had the look early on of a team that was historically good. And I think when you go back, not only the final scores late in the season, they were beating Florida 37-7. They were beating a highly ranked Miami team 41-14. But you just have to look at the NFL players. You're talking about a team that had a ton of guys drafted, 4 first-round draft picks, 7 second-round draft picks, and then guys who were drafted later who became really good pros, guys like Devontae Freeman, 4th-round draft pick off that team. Telvin Smith was a 5th-round draft pick. That team just was loaded, especially on the defensive side. So many guys who played in the NFL. And they got tested finally in the national championship game against Auburn, a thrilling back-and-forth game. They got down big early. Jimbo Fisher turned the game around with a key fake punt call. And then at the end of the game, Jameis Winston finding Kelvin Benjamin for a touchdown with just a few seconds left to cap off a 14-0 season. To me, that was maybe the best individual season by a team I'd ever seen.
There's a dynasty that dominated the decade, and then there's a team that stood out, and they're not the same thing. I think Alabama was definitely the team of the decade under Nick Saban. No doubt over the 10 years that they've been just every single year outside of 2019, always in the mix to make the playoff, always in the mix to win the national championship. But to me, the team of the decade is 2018 Clemson, because they went 15-0, first team to do that in more than a century. They had only one close call against Syracuse. And most importantly, when push came to shove in January, they played the best teams in the country, Notre Dame and Alabama, and wiped the floor with them both. And they beat Alabama in a margin and in a way that no team had defeated Alabama during the Saban era. So 2018 Clemson is the team, Alabama is the dynasty.
But when we look at a program just that has been, above the rest over the course of the last decade, Jay Wright has done just such great work with Villanova. To win 2 out of 3 championships, in the course of 3 years, particularly we're thinking about one of the best moments in college basketball history with Chris Jenkins drilling that 3-pointer to sink North Carolina in 2016. Villanova really takes a cake as being the program of the decade. Then to go and win in 2018, that was one of the most dominant teams we've seen, in the last decade, maybe 2-3 decades. Just the way that Villanova was really able to kind of pull that off and be so dominant in 2018. But really, no matter how good we're looking at with men's basketball, when we're looking at women's basketball, you have one of the best, if not, the best sports teams in the history of sports. We're thinking about what Coach Gino Auriemma has done to have a team go to the Final Four for 10 consecutive seasons. That's what we're talking about here. Over the decade, every single year in that decade, UConn has been in the Final Four. That's just a sensational run of dominance. And even though that they haven't cut down the nets in the last 3 years, the fact that they have won 5 of those 10 championships, the best of those being the 40-0 team of Breanna Stewart, leading them in 2013 and 14. What Gino Auriemma has done with this program is just, it speaks volumes to how dominant they are, and they definitely are up there as being one of the best, most dominant teams in sports history.
Who are we kidding? If you're not watching the new Star Wars or Baby Yoda, you're watching the college football playoff this Saturday. There's so much NFL talent on these 4 teams, you're basically watching the first round of the NFL draft play each other. First up, the Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State versus Clemson. Justin Fields versus Trevor Lawrence. Dabo's been talking a big game, and now he's got the stage to prove it. Chase Young has a chance to wreck it. It should be an instant classic. Then we head to Atlanta for the Peach Bowl. Joe Burrow, the Heisman winner, the future #1 pick, let's be real, the future Bengal, takes on Jalen Hurts and Lincoln Riley. Oh, and it's the final regular season Sunday of football, so no reason to leave your couch. Stick with Weekly Pulse, your heartbeat to what's trending in sports. Hey sports fans, if you want to see more videos like this, check out some of our other ones right here. And if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button and stick around for more from USA Today Sports.